Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Fat Guy with a Ponytail. We'll do a brief sort of status check. We're doing the usual stuff about my journey through bariatric surgery and changes with respect to that. But let's check in with the usual stats today. Today's weigh-in is meeting one of those goals that I was trying to set for myself, which is 275. At 275, I can now have a home gym if I wanted to, meaning a treadmill, most of those things. I think we talked about that the last episode, where that was sort of the max weight for most of the home treadmills and stuff. Ironically, that's, pardon me, not as necessary as it used to be, but that's a different story. Moving on. We are officially 60 days post-op. Sorry, and it's most important that you hydrate, so I'm going to go ahead and keep doing that while I talk, since I haven't been doing a great job of doing that over the past couple weeks. Checking in over total progress, that's a total loss of 76 pounds since January. Pre-op, 31 of those, and post-op, 45. We're averaging about about 3/4 of a pound a day. Although that sounds great, it's averaged over 60 days. So there are definitely periods of nothing's changing and then things do change. And I guess that would be the opportunity to say, oh, there was some commentary that said that there should be more all of me in the shot. Well, I don't have that kind of setup here, so walking into frame and things like that. But I will do this, since I was going to do this last night. I was doing my laundry, because that's what you do. You're doing laundry. And had a pair of shorts that I was working on. Came out of the laundry. I put them in from an old pirate gig, possibly as far back as the beginning. Where, because you dress in street clothes and then you go change into pirate clothes, or you bring street clothes with you so that when you go home you don't have to do it in 18th century garb. Because sometimes you just don't feel like asking questions. Or answering questions. It's a long deal. But anyhow, when I held these up and I looked at them, I was like going, wow, that looks big. And these fit, these were... When you're of that size, you basically wear clothes that fit. You want to, because it makes you feel less like you're sticking out in other places and things like that. So, you commit at some point. Say, okay, I will just wear the larger size and accept that this is the shape that I am. So compare, contrast that. If I go out of frame, you can see, let's see, where's the size? I get disoriented. That was pretty impressive. So I'll go ahead and accept that as some kind of victory. It was at least another one of those non-scale victories, I guess, right? And we need those to keep going, keep making the progress. And that's we talked about the mental games and things like that. And I apologize, this might be a longer one because I guess it's been a little bit longer than usual, maybe not. But a lot of stuff has happened since the last episode. Not super duper significant stuff, but different things. The going, I think I talked in a previous episode about drunk Joe versus sober Joe and the things you got to do. Well, there's also procrastinator Joe and motivated Joe. So being a split personality as I am, and you astrology people can all go, oh, Gemini and whatever. Bottom line is, I still have to do those things where motivated Joe basically has to set the pace and do things, put things in motion that procrastinator Joe will inevitably be unable to wiggle out of. As we know, we discussed some of the challenges of getting to the gym. Procrastinator Joe hates being with people. Most of Joe really is there's, I get claustrophobic, and having to wait in line for a machine when you already feel like you don't belong there because you're as large as you are and because you're as unfit as you are, at least in your head, because that's the psychology of it all. It poses a challenge, and you eventually talk yourself out of going because you're not really a fitness person, even though you know that you need to go. Um, so how do we get Joe into the gym? Well, the gym membership at the gym that I would never go to, that has like 3 machines and is really far away, and I convinced myself that I would go to, I basically canceled. There's a lot of reasons for that. The biggest one was I was changing jobs. Again, that's to be discussed later in this episode. Um, but when I canceled that gym membership, I said, you know what? I'm just going to sign up for the Y. Um, and I'm going to do this in 2 waves, because I'm going to sign up so that I can be part of the Y. And then the other thing that the Y does every year, and I have constantly put it off. I've thought about doing it, and then said, nah. Because one of the key ways that they talk about keeping yourself motivated, trying to get yourself into a more active lifestyle, is to sign up for something like a 5K or a run walk or something like that. So I looked online at a lot of those things, and decided that the turkey trot is about the level of complexity. It's close in Ellicott City, which is not far from here. It's on Thanksgiving Day in the morning, so you could bang it out and then get on with your day. I say bang it out. It's 3.3 miles, so a fit person could probably do that in a half hour. If an aggressive person, who's really used to running, wants to try for getting under 25, that's a thing. Um, I'm going to be content if I finish, and if it takes me an hour, it takes me an hour. Um, but nonetheless, I signed all the paperwork, put that in motion, and said basically, um, procrastinator Joe, you're going to have nowhere to go, because I've already signed you up for the gym, and I've already signed you up for a 5K. So unless you want to admit defeat, and uh, the added bonus of this is I had done this 4 or 5 years ago at least with a good friend of mine who basically had wanted to, help get me fit. It wasn't like take fatty for a walk. It was more, and I've talked about this friend before. He's also the one I think who would be the most critical, and has said so as much in exchanges that we've had privately about the surgery, and that classic meme. I think we talked about that. Pills and surgery in one line, and lifestyle changes in the other, and the lifestyle changes is empty. And how that's an oversimplification, and it really isn't the case with the surgery, but that was the view. At any rate, he's also the person who it comes from a good place. He's lost he's lost a lot of people around him due to cancer, and in general, not being fit is a big thing in his world. And you should care at some point. Some people are a little bit obsessive. I'd put him possibly in that category of wanting to do those kinds of things because you're afraid of being unfit, afraid of death, or I don't know, whatever that is. I don't have that fear. I don't have that judgmental vain piece of that, whatever that is. So but I do understand that this is a person who cares about me, and he wanted to, hey, you're going to do a 5K, I'll do it with you, and we'll get you running. And he also likes running. And I say likes, the way he's described it is necessary. And so if he has to pick it, and he's done it since forever, then that's been a part of his life. It's not been a part of mine as much. I've done it to get myself back in shape when I went into the Air Force, and on and off, but it's not my favorite. I mean, if I had to pick activities, it'd be hiking mountains and playing tennis, and other physical demanding activities. Weightlifting even is one that I enjoy, and I still haven't gotten back to. Nonetheless, so running. We signed up for a Father's Day 5K 6 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever time frame it was. And ultimately, I didn't keep up with it, and I didn't go, and he wore the T-shirt to, I don't think mock me, to more say, I'm still here, and you should keep going, Joe. Inevitably, that never happened. He moved away, and so it's been one of those things that I felt bad about. Not losing sleep over, but it was sort of like, gee, I really should have tried harder to do that. And I've been quiet about this, and he doesn't watch this stuff, I don't know what his internet habits are, but I'm sure I'm not in that list of things, and that is totally okay. I haven't told, well, I've told more people than I should have. Again, I suspect that that has more to do with motivated Joe forcing procrastinator Joe into a corner. The more people that know about him doing the 5K, the more that he's not going to be able to back out. So it's sealing off those exits and setting that up. So we're trying to do that differently. I have not told him, and I will not tell him. He's a special case. I will happily wear the shirt and announce completion of same in the hopes of equalizing that faux pas, or at least in some way saying, "Hey, look, I did it and I didn't need your help." In any case, so that's been I signed up for that and made that happen. And because I did that, procrastinator Joe has been forced to go to the gym, and he will go in the morning typically. So my day starts at 5. It's at the gym at 5:30 or somewhere close abouts, and I slot into my usual shower schedule so that I could be at work at 7:30. Um, that is not always possible given some of the things that have, things happen. I don't get to bed. Interestingly enough, procrastinator Joe is also angry Joe. And so when he gets home and he hasn't had the chance to work out and he knows the 5K is coming, it is amazing because he will come home and this will be taken to the gym and forced to basically just like, and it comes down to I basically get home and say, God damn it, I haven't been to the gym. Fuck it. I'll put on my stupid gym clothes and I'll go and I'll get on the fucking treadmill and I'll go ahead and do my stupid, run this far and that far and yada, yada, yada. And next thing you know, I'm done. So I'm doing the couch to 5K and I'm not doing great these days. I'm not doing terrible. I'm still keeping the pace. But I don't know if I talked about earlier, my left knee, another one of those watershed moments when I knew that I had issues that I needed to deal with. That left knee has been weaker since the surgery, and I haven't done enough of the PT to strengthen those muscles as I need to, and that still is on the list of things to do. Obviously, the impact of running plays a role in that. However, I am quick not to basically take that and turn that into an excuse to not show up at the gym. So what I'll do is basically take the pace a little slower, or theoretically I would do something more low impact. We're not even getting the full 5K out of me yet, but we are going regularly 3 times a day, doing stuff like that, and I guess it's making a difference on some level. We're also rehearsing and trying to get that change in. I haven't gotten nearly as much. I got a big schedule for this weekend. We do have the gig coming up Wednesday, and hopefully that'll be. I'm hoping for a better result on my ability to keep the pace. It was definitely I still had something in the tank last month it's September, mid-September when we did Marcus Hook. This will be in Camden, New Jersey, so that should be interesting. Also, similarly, I've changed jobs. This is another one of those cases where procrastinator Joe and motivated Joe take turns at the helm. Motivated Joe knows that procrastinator Joe hates his job, and before he does something rash and stupid and just up and quits, which I've never done really except maybe once, and even then I don't think I quit without a plan. Maybe NSA was probably one of those things. I think I took a month off and basically said forget it. But at any rate, I apologize. Where was I? Hold on a second. Okay, so we're talking about changing jobs, and procrastinator Joe is an impulsive person. So motivated Joe basically goes and sets up the interviews and make sure that we have a path that makes sense if Joe is really that sick and tired of being where he is. And motivated Joe also does all the legwork to basically say, okay, do I really need to change jobs? Is there anything I can do within this company that I'm working for to move laterally. And essentially, it got to a point where there was no place for me to go career-wise. So we made the change to go ahead and do that. And that's another interesting choice to have made at this point. We'll touch on that later. The theme for this video is perhaps unconventional, and I'll describe that after we talk a little bit about food choices that have also been going on. So we continue to have eating out challenges, and very difficult. So as I changed jobs, one of the places we do the farewell lunch, and Cheesecake Factory was, I think, the place that they put on the menu. Finding a place to eat where I can eat something is hard enough as it is, given what I'm going to eat and my sensitivities or new sensitivities to large quantities. And I say large, but it's not really like large. It's more than what I'm used to, quantities of fat. You think that keto is the answer for this, bariatric surgery, and it is only half the story. You really also need to cut back on the fats, or at least I do, because my universe that's how I react to food, both sweet things. I think we talked about grapes, and fats. Case in point, I was so excited. I don't know if I told the story or not, but the bacon story, where I had finally gotten a piece of bacon after all this time, and I chewed on that piece of bacon, and it tasted so good. It was like, oh, bacon. I'm like, taste the bacon. Bacon's good. Bacon's meat. Bacon's the pig. And within minutes, I'm suddenly nauseous, and there was no more bacon to be had. And the best I could think of was fat content. That's part of it. I think one of the more interesting things that also happened was I thought, well, okay, it's the fat content in the bacon, right? Makes sense. So, and we go get this off the store. Well, what are you going to do? Fresh is better, right? So we go to the farmer's market, and we get some. There's a dude there who supplies some of the finer restaurants in Baltimore, and I forget the name of his farm, but Shane's meats are really amazing. I'd gotten a couple tomahawk steaks there, New York strips, always good cuts and always just so delicious. So he's got bacon, and he's got turkey bacon. Wow, you can't go wrong with turkey bacon, right? Because the fat content, it's super lean. You're not going to be as happy about it, but you'll give it a shot. So I woke up one morning a couple weeks ago. It's like, I got the bacon out. I'm going to make it, slice it open, take my time for breakfast this morning, slice it, put a couple pieces in the pan, let it cook, and start sizzling. I go, that's bacon. I can still smell bacon, even if it's turkey bacon. And I'm going, all right, going to go ahead and get myself a plate, and I'm getting prepared. And I look down at the ingredients on the bacon, and I see brown sugar and molasses. Yeah. And those 4 slices of bacon basically became somebody else's bacon. And since that wasn't a resealable pack because farmers markets, I was cooking basically a pound of bacon for somebody else that was going to enjoy it. I think the somebody else was Robbie, the Shar-Pei that also lives here. And also the cats, I think, both kind of dig bacon. So they enjoyed the bacon, and it lasted for quite a while. I had none. And I also looked at the sausage that I was also going to cook up. Really, turkey breakfast sausage and brown sugar. So none of that. So theories on the bacon incident that I had earlier. Who knows? There's probably brown sugar. It kind of makes sense, right? That's what you see in bacon. You've cured it with we put sugar in everything, and that's one of those things that's typical. So, gosh, that means I need to pay even closer attention, and that explains why I have to be super duper careful at restaurants when you're eating out. In the case of the luncheon at Cheesecake Factory, I whittled it down to, I think I was down to edamame and the Skin Delicious salmon. And I have to go into the restaurants, and I have to be that guy. And I am not that guy. If you know me at all, I'm basically like, as the chef intends it, just cook it. I'm not going to be picky. You put coleslaw on my plate. I hate coleslaw, but I'm not going to tell you not to put it on the plate. I'll be just like, okay, I'll ignore that. That's for somebody else. But at this point, because it makes me so sick, and because it's going to do it in a public setting where I'm with coworkers or folks that may not know about my surgery, I'm like, oh, I got to ask the question. So I'm that guy, and I pull the waitress aside. I'm like going, so the fish, the salmon. Um, and she's like, yeah, you guys put sugar in it? She looks at me like I got three heads. It's like, oh, okay. Like, so what I'm looking for is you basically got a fish and you throw it in a pan or on the grill and you cook it. And then you put it on a plate and you say, eat it, Joe. Is that how you cook the fish? It's like, well, we season it, all right, with like salt, something like that. Yeah, not sugar, no sugars or anything, just, seasonings. It's like, okay. And that actually turned out perfect. It was flaky, it was delicious. I'm not really a big salmon person, but my palate has become so limited. So some of these things have changed clearly because I would never eat edamame. But if I got to eat out, I know that that's going to be safe. What it's going to do for me protein-wise is negligible. And I find, I had my 8-week check-in with the doc. They're pleased with the progress. They say I'm progressing as expected. So apparently that's normal. Um, and I guess we talked about food choices, and they were okay with my basic menu, which is apparently, for the most part, it begins with a protein shake. I might do a protein bar for lunch, and then I have a regular old meal. Occasionally I'll have a lunch that's more than that, but I lack the imagination, and I'm pretty busy, and those things I can get into my face and get 30 grams of protein, boom, like that, or 21 in the case of the bars. So if I'm still shooting for 70 to 100, and I gotta get hit higher on the proteins. I think I'm more in the 80 to 90. I think I've said that before. It has to happen. I think one of the things that I have noticed, it makes me a little sad. No one, I've heard conflicting remarks, but I see hair loss of some kind that it's inevitable at this age, and I'm not going to be the guy who's obsessed with like, oh, I've got to get Rogaine and make heroic measures. I've shaved my head before. I have no trouble being bald. I don't know if I'm ready just yet, but if it comes down to it, if it's going to be a comb over or it looks as badly thin as it appears to, um, I don't know. We went to a wedding last week or so, and some of the pictures when I had my hair down, it's very, very thin, very flat. I don't know if I like it. I've never been like big hair, 80s hair kind of person, but there's at least one picture floating around that I had a much fuller head of hair. Now that was 10 years ago, but I mean, come on, really? So at any rate, I'll increase the protein, see if it helps. It's not like it's coming off in clumps like chemotherapy and stuff like that, but it's not what I'd like to see happen, and that is apparently a thing. So reasons to keep that up. Other food things we talk about. So, and this is interesting because it relates to food choices in the restaurant. Because I think I said that I reacted badly to a burger. It's like, what the heck, a burger? How do you react badly to a burger? It's just meat. Well, okay, so I wanted to make one of my favorite things to make Sunday dinner, Italian family, is you make meatballs and sausage. You put sorry, I said that wrong. You put meatballs and sausage. You put it in the crock pot. You let it cook all day on Sunday, and you get it back, and it's delicious. You get the sauce, you get the meatballs, the sausage, and you throw that on some pasta, and it's delicious. Now we've already talked about the Impossibles being a decent enough substitute. So it's like, all right, we'll make meatballs. All right, I'm gonna make meatballs. Just meat? It's like, no, it's not. And I'd forgotten that until I started making them and said, oh, wait, what do you put with meatballs? Well, to make the meatballs, some people do, veal, pork, and beef and do that medley. I do mostly just beef. But always breadcrumbs. Always breadcrumbs. Italian breadcrumbs. And egg. And I was like, well, I can't have breadcrumbs. What do you do? So we had some pork rinds. I crushed those up and thought, oh, that should be a decent enough substitute. They were okay. Other eaters of the meatballs said, no, they tasted fine. There's a certain moistness that I think they were more dense than I wanted them to be. I didn't think that the pork flavors came out, which is okay. It just didn't taste. It didn't taste amazing to me, so I was disappointed. The sauce, on the other hand, was great. It was fantastic. And that was another one of those things where we go to the farmer's market to get sauce off a guy there because every other sauce that I look at on the shelves, there's sugar in it. Even if I made it myself, and I have done that once. I made sauce myself, and that was actually pretty good. But it's the tomatoes are okay, but so many recipes add add sugar to it, and that's where it goes off the rails. Can't do it. But this guy makes a decent sauce, and there's no added sugar, so it works out great. It's sad because the guy next to him sells some salsa, and he puts honey in it, and it's like, I can't have that. But I can make salsa myself. I've done that. I did that for a cooking class, and I just haven't done it. But regular old salsa, I think Tostitos, that actually has no added sugars or anything else like that. So I was able to smear that on some taco meat and cheese and have a deconstructed taco, which was also pretty good. Um, I did have, I do find that seafood seems to be the safer choice, which, let me wind that back a little bit. So with respect to those meatballs, it may not be completely crazy to think that some of these restaurants that serve these meats, a burger, a simple burger, isn't a simple burger. Perhaps it has breadcrumbs in it. You don't know. So again, if you really, really care, you have to be that guy. And the best way to know is to just do it yourself. So you're ultimately going to be cooking more as you go through this experience, which I've done some. I don't eat as much. So it is really a challenge to basically be like, I am going to make all this food because I have two of those giant containers of meatballs that are sitting in the freezer because there's impossible for me. I will sit down with two meatballs on a really wicked hungry day, and if I do it really slowly, three, and I'll eat that, and that's okay. That gets me through. But honestly, it's an effort because not only is there the chewing, because you got to chew the 30 times, but give myself 30 minutes. So it's, and I put the fork down, and I wait, and I have an imaginary conversation with myself, then another bite, and it takes forever. It's like, you're killing me, Smalls. I got 30 minutes to eat this. That's too long. I got to get on with things. I got things to do. I got 30 more songs I got to work on. So there's that. And that's always a challenge. And I'm still not getting enough water. And I'll warn you, again, because you should know, water is really key. It's not just about falling over and being nauseous. In the digestive system, you really, really need that water. And I've learned about coffee. I'm allowed to have coffee, and I had a couple cups of coffee over the week, maybe 2, 3, and the impact of that coffee on the amount of water that gets absorbed, because it's a diuretic, it's significant. I could be just fine and get my 64 ounces of water. I have a cup of coffee, now it's like -10 or something ridiculous. It's crazy. And I noticed this because the constipation and well, we're friends here, so we'll talk frankly. The hardening of stools it's bad. It's just bad. You don't want to be there. And if you're like me and you go to a professional workplace, you don't want to be the guy in the bathroom who's giving birth in the stall. It's unpleasant. And trust me, the scope of things is such that good on you if you're that much of a man that basically you can pinch one off that's going to be about this big and not scream your lungs out. Or at least clutch the side. It's not a good feeling. You really don't do it. That's all I can say. It's and then the only positive is the relief that follows. That you go, that's gone. But it's really it's a stage of, there's a wave of dread, like I have to go, and you haven't had your water, and you can feel as you sit down to do the thing that, yeah, it's gonna, and then you don't want to, but you have to, and then you get to that moment where it's the point of no return, and then it's just, yeah. So when it's finally over, it is honestly like, I need a cigarette. So don't do it. Drink your water. Save yourself the pain and agony, and stay regular. And now we move on to the theme, I guess, if there is a theme. So I did change jobs, and it occurred to me as I was contemplating this issue about changing jobs. I'm probably going to write something up about this because it translates better in the written word, I think. But for those who don't know, I'm 51 years old, and the idea that you would willingly change jobs versus getting laid off and have to find one, Maybe that's better. It's on your own terms versus, trying to do that on the fly. But my employer bonus season's coming. It's next month. I'm walking away from a significant bonus. Let's call it 10,000 and change. Um, and I could have just stayed, gutted it out, and then changed jobs in January. But it was pretty miserable. And we talk about what's the trope, or was the I can never remember that word. Um, yeah, can't remember it, but it is work to live, not live to work. And I'm on the fence about that because um, I would like to do something that I enjoy doing, at least a little. Doing software development, I enjoy doing. Music, I love. Um, so if I get to do those things, then what it pays for is secondary in some ways. But the reality of things is I have a house, have a family, and I got to take care of things. I got bills to pay, so you got to make compromises somewhere. Um, but when you go into work and just thinking, man, and your career choices are limited, which is where I was. The real trick is that I'm also 51. So to make that choice at that moment is bold. At least that's what I was told by the folks that I was leaving. And I think ultimately their motivations were, a certain element of shame and, well, rethink it, search your conscience, playing on your fears, which I think is pretty weak. And it occurs to me that, and my dad, he's also the same way. My dad, it comes from a good place. He's always been more conservative uh, with respect to choices in life than I have been. His dad, not so much. And his dad ended up living with my dad, or at least having my dad basically pay for a place for them to live and take care of them, um, which is because he made some choices that were bold. Um, and I guess in some ways, more than I would care to admit, I'm a little like him. But I would there's another friend of mine um, who had a I think in her 20s, maybe early 30s, um, working at a large corporation and being untraditional in her universe of things. And she used the word to describe her life and her concerns, um, because she had met somebody who was a bit of a mentor, and found them to be, well, she didn't expect them to be a mentor, but because they led their life differently and chose to have a beer here and there. It's complicated, and I can't remember the whole story, but the bottom line was, her takeaway was that here is somebody who I can respect and think that I can have a career and still be unconventional. And that word has stuck with me ever since. That there is a certain amount of people, I would argue many of the people that I hang out with, which I would describe as unconventional. Rennies and people who dress up in 18th century garb, folks who, tattoo artists, and people who don't necessarily get the wife and 2.5 kids and a white picket fence. Some do, but they don't. That still doesn't change who they are and how they live. And it's in their, it may transfer to their sexuality. It may transfer to all aspects of their lives. They don't fit into whatever that model of, and it's an oversimplification to say normal. But it is that sort of societal norms role. So at 51, the societal norms say, well, you would never change jobs. Why would you do that? It's like, because I'm not happy and I don't want to be unhappy doing my job. It's like, well, but you're going into consulting at 51. It's like going, yeah, okay, I did it at 40 something too, and it was also late. But I got the skill set, and they want to hire me. They seem to think I know something. And I guess I risk getting fired or not being able to keep up. But I think, once I thought about it, um, I'm not conventional. There's nothing about me that seems to be conventional. Um, the things that I'm interested in, the things that I do professionally, playing in a pirate band. I'm not just a musician who plays in bars, but I dress in 18th century clothing, and I like it, and it's what I want to do. It's not because it pays well. It happens to pay better than bar bands. I won't lie. But writing original music when no one's going to hear it, that's not conventional. Writing stories that no one's going to read, that's not conventional. Um, and still doing it anyway, and not just hanging it up and putting away childish things. I still happen to like toys. Here, this is on my desk, and I happen to be a big fan of Dexter's Laboratory, um, and I think my daughter gave that to me. And it's not like it's stuff from the olden days, Mr. Meeseeks. I'm a big fan of Rick and Morty, and these are nerddoms that in the 20 and 30 somethings are very strong. I'd like to believe they're universal. I think Captain still enjoys Rick and Morty. Um, and it's I guess I was critical or scared about it because I was always afraid. There's another friend of mine who I thought, oh well, she's always just trying to fit in with the 20 and 30 somethings, and it's like, oh well, no, that's you don't get to pick who your tribe is. I mean, I guess you do, but those are the people that seem to share the same things, and some of us are the old farts within that group because we're unconventional, and maybe we just don't stop being unconventional. So changing jobs, dressing like a pirate, um, and I guess I'm trying to think of a way to tie this back to this episode. Doing all these things at a later age when you could just hang them up and say, "Oh, this is who I am. This is the shape that I am." In some ways, is unconventional. I think I do it a little differently, but um, mind body health. I guess if we're to go there, and that trying to say, well, realizing who you are, as my late sister would say, living out loud is better for you in general. Because I spent a lot of time earlier, and I would say earlier, but maybe 10, 15 years ago, a man with many secrets. And it came to a point where those secrets um, couldn't necessarily be as secret as I'd hoped they would be, mostly due to my marriage and the like. And some of the things I just was up to no good. And I changed that. I lived out loud, and man, it was a different kind of weight that I lost, which was good. So being unconventional, living out loud, and accepting who you are as a person and the things that you do, maybe he helps you lose weight in other ways. How's that for a segue? So that's the plan. Being unconventional, but not for the sake of being unconventional, just accepting that is me. And we'll see how the gig goes on Wednesday. Continue to hopefully lose some weight. Last status thing. Nah, we'll save that for next time. Yeah. Until then, be yourselves, and we'll see you next time.